On the path to self-discovery, we are often met with opposition. Some forms so extreme that it shatters our will to the point of self-annihilation. In these moments, we are presented the option to either wither in self-deprecation or reflect and evolve, using them as a platform to grow stronger. Today, on COCINA Pirata Podcast, I am joined by visionary pastry chef Raymond Morales, who after being locked away for 28 months has returned to the kitchen in the midst of a global pandemic as a redefined individual driven by conviction and continuing his journey creating some of the most thought-provoking plates to be encountered in any corner of the world.
Contra la muerte nosotros demandamos vida. Contra el silencio exigimos la palabra y el respeto. Contra el olvido, la memoria. Contra la humillación y el desprecio, la dignidad. Contra la opresión, la rebeldía. Contra la esclavitud, la libertad. Contra la imposición, la democracia. Y contra el crimen, la justicia.
And we're good to go. What's up, brother? How you doing? Good to see you.
Solid, man. Likewise.
You look healthy, happy.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to do.
How's everything going back there? How have you been in Los Angeles? No, in the heat of the madness.
It's been pretty weird. It's been off and on. You see everywhere else opening up, but then California's the only one that's still super restricted. Now it's a little more lenient, but
yeah, it was
pretty wild for the whole year essentially. You know?
Yeah,
and there was this brief period where they opened, and then I think 3 weeks later after that they just shut it back down.
Yeah, like super lockdown, eh? And
yeah, pretty much.
It's kind of weird how they did it there too, how they like opened shit up, and then I believe at one point it was like 2 weeks open and then shut back down, and then
yep.
Seems like fucking madness. It seems like they don't really know what they're doing, but happy to see things coming back together, I guess, with this vaccine. Things have
everyone's just winging it.
Yeah, and you back in the kitchen,
straight up winging it.
Yeah. And you back in the kitchen.
When I got back, I was winging it too. Yeah.
Everybody was trying to keep it together. Yeah, the last time I saw you was 3.5 years. I've been down in Mexico for 3.5 years. And
yeah, it's probably December of 2017.
Yeah, and I was super fucking hyped. And I will tell you that we spent a very brief amount of time in the kitchen together, but I noticed when I left Los Angeles that I actually in that short period of time I gained a lot of influence from you, and I was really looking forward to working together. And I just got the call one day that you were out, and I guess we got to start there if we're gonna catch up. So what the fuck happened? You went through some crazy shit, and now you're back in the game, and I would love to hear what went down and hear your story a little bit.
Totally. Yeah, it was super random. I mean, it was and it wasn't. So I think the March of 2017, I got in a car accident. It was caused from drinking and driving. So essentially what happened is I drifted and I clipped a parked car. And I hit another parked car. And then that one pushed forward and jolted out towards the street and hit a valet driver. And that valet driver ended up breaking his leg and his arm.
God damn.
So I went through the court procedures. I went to court every month for 8 months. Then on the 8th month, they're saying, okay, here's what we're going to give you. Here's the deal. Either you take this amount of time, which was 4 years, 4 months, or you take it to court. So if I took it to court, realistically, I would have gotten more time just because I was clearly at fault. So I was kind of forced, by my own decision, I guess, to take the deal.
Yeah.
And so they're like, there's one stipulation you have to go in today. And I'd been going to court once a month. So I got used to just going, getting rescheduled, and then just going back home. And so this one day I was like, well, I guess that's it. Yeah. If I got to go in today, I guess I got to go in today. So I just started making calls, calling everyone. I called my work at the time. I called my folks. I called my girlfriend at the time. And then I kind of just relied on them to let everyone else know, because I only have a small window. I had 10 minutes, I think.
Jesus.
Pretty much try and close ties with everybody, And so, yeah, I went in that day. I think I did 8 months state, just bouncing around from different facilities. And then I went to fire camp. And so when I went to fire camp, that cut my time in half. So I went from having 4 years, 4 months to, in total, I think I did 28 months. And I think about 21 of those were at fire camp, which is a good and bad experience,
That's fucking insane. I saw there's a this is like an option in California, no? Like a time cutting option is this fire camp. I saw there's like a Josh Brolin movie out now or something about it. But
what's it called? Yeah, Only the Brave. I think it's pretty accurate. You know, you see a lot of those guys. Those are federal workers, so they're called hot shots.
Okay.
So we worked under the umbrella of Cal Fire. So we had like a Cal Fire captain, and we worked, you know, with all their equipment or whatever. So.
What was the charge that 4 years seems extreme. I mean, I understand that someone was hurt, but it was like reckless endangerment or something like this.
Yeah. So it was 2 initially. The main one was a felony DUI, which carries 16 months. So that, you know, chances are if I would have just got that, I would have just maybe did a couple of weeks or so. But I got a GBI, which is a great bodily injury, which tacked on 3 years minimum. So that was 4 years, 4.5 years, essentially, you know.
And you had nothing before, like before this. You didn't have any sort of record before this, or?
I had stuff from like when I was a teenager, you know. But
yeah, the same shit.
Other than that, it was fine. Yeah,
the same shit.
Just standard stuff.
All these miscreants in the kitchen probably have a little bit of something going on.
Totally.
That's fucking.
Like traffic violations, nothing like that. You know?
That's fucking crazy. And what was your blood alcohol content?
It was 0.24, so it was pretty high.
God damn, you were juiced, player. What the fuck? That's crazy, man. That's insane.
It's gnarly. I laugh about it, but it's pretty serious.
And it is that is super serious. I think that people don't realize how. I mean, that's a super freak situation to like hit a car and have the car roll out and hit somebody else. That's some random shit to be in the right place at the right time. Was this in Los Angeles or was this in Pasadena?
Yeah, it was in Studio City. So it was like down the street from where I worked. That's where I used to work.
Okay.
That's where I was leaving. I was leaving my old job, just going to hang out, you know?
Yeah.
So just things got kind of weird there. So I just took off. I guess all pissed off.
That's crazy,
boom,
bro.
Like 3 blocks away, boom, smashed into a parked car. Who hits a parked car?
And did you actually my wife did a while back. That was one of the first. We were having conversations about car accidents. She did hit a parked car, but it didn't end up being as bad. That's fucking crazy. And you, like, I feel like you were at a spot where, I mean, you had a lot going on. You're a hard worker, and you were doing. You were doing something with Paul, right, at the time.
Yeah.
And then you were also doing the Raymond, no?
Yeah. No, I was at Wally's. So
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I was the exec at Wally's. And so we were looking at, which they did while I was gone. They ended up opening the Santa Monica spot. And so I remember that was in talks. And then they were working on this new Las Vegas spot, which I remember hearing about as well. So I had all that potential with Wally's. And then I was working at the Flats, like, not collaborating. What do you call it? Consulting at the Flats, with Paul.
Yeah.
And then I was working over at Two Hays with you.
Yeah.
So I was just being around all over the place.
That was crazy. And then that all kind of got swept away. How was the time then? I mean, what were you thinking when you were in there, especially going to fire camp? I guess when I saw you at fire camp and shit, I was like, I wonder if he's going to come back when he gets out. Like, what is he thinking about? What is he doing? Because also you were doing some really fucking cool shit. You still are, but
going that route, but food is just, I love that artistic outlet, so that's super fun to have. But I don't know, dude, you just miss everything. You just miss basic necessities, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like having like a normal size bar of soap, or like just like shit you're used to having.
And where
all the little luxuries, you know?
And where were you? Were you in? Were you in like Max? No, you weren't in Max.
No, I was like it was a level 1 and 2. So
okay,
it's a lot of like small charges, drug offenses, nothing too super crazy.
Okay. And then you got out and it was like right back into the game, or because when did you get out?
I got out in March. It'll be a year on the 20th. So March 20th last year.
Congratulations on a year out, brother.
Yeah. I think it was either the day of or like the week before that they issued the quarantine.
Fuck, dude.
So I remember following it on the news for like a month. You know, they kind of heard about it.
Yeah.
It was happening in Europe, and then it kind of started trickling over here. And then when I got out, I just remember going to Walmart with my folks, I just remember being like, oh, junk food. And they're like, oh, get toilet paper, get paper towels. And I'm like, what the fuck's the big deal? You know, it's like normal shit. We can just get that down where we live. And they're like, no, you don't understand. And clearly I didn't, because I went to Target the following day. And I just remember the shelves were just empty. It's crazy.
That's a crazy fucking transition back into the real world. You're essentially on lockdown after being on lockdown for 4 years. 28 months. But and then did you jump? But so then you didn't jump right back into work? No, you chilled out. When did you start?
I think in the summer, like around the summertime. Paul hit me up and he was working at Tom Bergen's in the West Side.
Okay.
And so we were just doing pop-ups out of Tom Bergen's like twice a month, 2 or 3 times a month, you know, nothing crazy, but it was fun. I remember the first day I went back, I felt like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. You know, when you first go to a new place, and you're just circling around trying to find equipment. Yeah. And I remember making like endless of trips to the walk-in. Like, what the fuck do I need to go?
1,000. And just like the hands, it doesn't take long to knock the rust off. But I took like a 4-year break from cooking. But when I was living in Denver, I took like a 4-year break from cooking. When I came back in Los Angeles and was like just getting back into the system. I went to Joe's. I started cooking at Joe's in Venice, which is now Felix, I think. And I just getting back in the kitchen to knock the rust off is fucking weird. It's a weird feeling. Yeah. You know, it's like you've been there, but you don't know what the fuck's going on. It seems like, are you still working with Paul? Are you still doing pop-ups with Paul?
No, now he's over in North Carolina working at I think it's like a resort or something like that. Yeah. So he kind of took that project over because it was just hard times over here for a long time. So
I never met that dude. You worked with him a lot. It seems like he is kind of just doing his own fucking thing. It just seems like
just like skate rat, surf kid, you know.
Yeah, and he's just doing his thing. He's not really like falling into anything specifically. No, he's kind of like bouncing around, doing consulting, not getting tied down. And now you're.
It was just like stays true to his style. You know, I think people really are drawn to that, so it's always worked out for him.
And he does quite a bit of modernist technique. No. Yeah. Is that where you got some of your where did you start? I don't even really know your cooking history outside of, you know, the brief bit that we talked back, but where did you get when did you start in the kitchen?
I think it was like, I don't know, what year was it? I know officially in 2007 I started working professionally in kitchens. But before that I was just making vegan desserts because I was vegan for a while, for like 5 years. And I just remember at the time it was really hard to find dessert. Yeah. People take it for granted now. You can just go anywhere, go to any basic grocery store. But I remember being like in the Inland Empire, having to drive all the way to San Fernando just to go to like one grocery store that had something, you know? Yeah. So I just started making that shit on my own. And I would go to punk shows and just slang it there. And I was just like, I'm pretty good at this. So I just sought out a job and I got like an entry-level pastry assistant job. It was like 3rd-tier pastry assistant. Crazy. And I just slowly worked my way up over the years. I think before that, I worked at some chicken rotisserie joint for like a couple of weeks. And then I saw some dude drop all the herbs on the floor and then sweep them back into the container and be like, don't tell anybody. So I was like, fuck this place. I've
definitely worked in some places where I've had those sentiments where, I mean, when you're a journeyman, I guess you stumble through those things. I've been recording for like a week now, and I've been doing it with friends in the music industry. You're the first person I'm talking with from the restaurant industry, but I've explained like kind of this weird place we're in right now where everybody is going to culinary school or starting a YouTube channel and becoming a chef very rapidly. And the difficulties of coming up.
Some people put good content out, but then it's like a lot of things now. Everything's just being oversaturated, you know.
Yeah, and coming up through the ropes, like you said, just, you know, fucking making pastries for punk rock shows in yourself, and then getting a gig and walking up the ladder. I think it gives you a bigger toolbox. No, in the end. It gives you it gives you work ethic. I think there's more longevity in people that come up through the ranks.
I came up to on the like the tail end of like the stereotypical like abusive kind of chef.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff, all the people I worked under, that was so prominent during their era. So it kind of trickled on towards mine, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I worked with the chefs for years. I think I worked with him for like, I don't know, maybe 5 years or something. But it was just like berate everybody, you know?
Yeah.
Throw stuff, grab you, whatever, like you name it. So that gave me a real thick skin over the years. I really respect and appreciated that. Out of a lot of stuff I experienced, that was one thing I really appreciated, just because now everything's just smooth sailing. Like,
yeah, it's really fucking weird. I had only been in kitchens like that. I started when I was like 13 washing dishes in a French bistro in Vermont and just worked my way through to the West Coast and all over the place. And then when I got to LA, I was like, what the fuck is going on with these kitchens? Like this dude is called, like, I was like, why are they calling everybody chef? Why are they're all referring to each other as chef and they're all very nice to each other. What the fuck is going on? Yeah. And I think in a lot of people, you know, when you, I came up in that shit too. And like you said, like I fucking appreciate it, man. I was never upset. Yeah. I was never upset about it. I mean, maybe
sometimes you miss it because you want to be like so direct with someone, but you kind of have to work your way around it, do like the PC way now.
Yeah. and because now you almost feel like you want to do it more now because people get away, like the kids get away with a lot more than they did, and that's kind of why food to me has become more loose around the edges than it was, and it seems like
it's weird. It's like. It's glamorized on TV, you know, with like Gordon Ramsay and people like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to the actual work environment, it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
So it's this weird double standard.
I just can't. That's why I moved to the middle of fucking nowhere in Mexico to cook just myself with one other. I just found a local girl who I cooked with, and I worked with her for the past 3 years, and just recently kind of sent her on her way because it's time for her to spread her wings. And I don't really believe in like holding on to people for extended periods of time. But I felt like in Los Angeles, I couldn't find people with work ethic. And that was one of the things that frustrated me. And then what came out of me was that old school mentality of like, listen, motherfucker, put your head down, bitch. Stop crying. Like we got work to do. No one had. I mean, do you? What the fuck's going on now with this shit? I mean, me and you were writing in Instagram the other day, and you said you're just trying to fill time with creativity right now, but. Yeah. What do you see?
Well, out here it's different from like the rest of the country. I mean, not the rest of the country, but like you look at places like Texas, everything is open.
Yeah.
So here we were just doing to go for a long time. So it's just like I was making like 2 dishes at a time, you know?
Yeah.
I had 2 dishes on the menu, so I had all this free time to try and kill. So what better thing to do than to try, you know, learn something new technique or whatever.
And what's the
I'm stuck on like kind of trying to perfect the classics, you know?
Yeah.
I think I kind of came back full circle. So I'm right there. I'm not that stage now, like, embrace the creme brulee or whatever. I just try to make the best one I can make, you know, every time.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about consistency, right? A little bit.
That's one of the things that came from that old school training, though, that old school technique. It's like an egg. How many dudes, how many executives, like if you had a contest with all of the executive chefs in Los Angeles, how many do you think could first try cook a perfect over easy egg? Or make a perfect souffle, or any of the, or the like these are the techniques that we lost that were beaten into our heads. No.
Yeah, I know dudes who still can't make rice.
They're fucking crazy, man. And this is and it doesn't seem like there's kids that are hungry to learn that way anymore. Because I am a white dude on the coast of Oaxaca in the middle of nowhere with a fine dining, like a tasting menu restaurant, working with a single farm, I've gotten a lot of interest, and I have a lot of kids hit me up. And in the beginning, I would ask, I don't accept stages. I don't believe in not paying people for work. So I had kids come down and I'd be like, you can work, but I'm going to fire you if it doesn't work out. And without fail, within a week and a half, 2 weeks, I would fire somebody because they would have an idea about how they thought I should be telling them how to work. And it's like, just show up and shut the fuck up, dude, you know, and learn a little bit. You just got out of culinary school, motherfucker. And so
just fill the void, be a sponge and fill the void, and just soak up as much as you can for as long as you can.
And the crazy thing to me is that I fucking miss that shit. Like, I miss that learning. And when I go to like a homie's kitchen, for example, who's cooking, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to learn. And I'm always hungry to learn more and absorb more. And it kind of sucks when you get to a point where you can't, you know? So it's cool that you have the opportunity to do that right now. I see that you're doing the classics, but you still got your little flair. No?
You know, you got to play to the crowd too. Where I'm at right now, there's like, it's a mix of people coming in who want more of an experience. And then there's a lot of the old people still coming in.
Yeah.
Just those standards, those staples, which I respect. You know, they're good. They're always good.
So right now,
style, man.
So right now it's just you and a couple dudes in the kitchen, huh? Just you on pastries and a couple dudes in the kitchen.
Yep. My buddy Johnny Quintana. I worked with him for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so. I think I met him back in 2013, 2014. Cool. And he just became the exec there. And so they needed a pastry chef. The one they have, I think she was just kind of checked out and was like ready to move on, you know?
Yeah.
So he hit me up and I came through and I was just like, yeah, I'm down to work here again, you know, because I worked there prior in 2016 for a year.
Okay.
So right after a year, I left and went for Wally's because Wally's was just a better opportunity.
Yeah.
So I came back because he showed up and I think it's like a perfect duo, you know, they kind of just bounce off each other ideas wise. And then there's, let's see, 5 or 6 other cooks and 1 prep cook. So it's a real tight crew, you know, we have dinner and we have brunch. So
yeah. And
it works out.
have you guys started to plan the return kind of as things start to open back up? Have you guys planned what's the next step, or do you see a future? Do you look into the future at all, or are you kind of just focused on what's going on right now?
Unfortunately, at our restaurant, most of the seating is already outdoors. Like 2/3 of the seating is outdoors. So we didn't lose too much as far as seating wise, just the inside, which was already really small. So we're fortunate in that aspect. But I think I heard indoor is supposed to open the next month or so. So I think all we really need is bodies, you know. We can exit. The kitchen's tiny, but execution's there. I think if we have 1 more body, maybe even 2 more, things would just run a lot smoother, and then we can kind of focus more in the future on what is possible. So right now it's just trying to like sustain this shit, you know?
Yeah. And
still try to get the best product.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, lately it's been kind of hit or miss too with that. So it's just, everyone's kind of struggling and trying to figure that either, you know, whatever company they're with, trying to figure it out.
I mean, I think that this was a good, actually a really good thing. I know that it sounds a bit toxic to say that, but I think that what's happening right now in the restaurant industry because of COVID was necessary. I think that, you know, one of the reasons I left as well and kind of try to figure out how to do this thing in a more organic fashion is because there is a lot of, even before the YouTube and the super rapid culinary school growth, there's a lot of weird shit to me in the restaurant industry. I've been in it long enough to see and wonder and not understand the wage disparity, for example, between chefs and line cooks, and specifically in a place like Los Angeles. Specifically in a place like Los Angeles, where the majority of the chefs are not actually cooking, but they're making a large sum of money, and then the restaurant is complaining about 10% profit margins when it's clear that management soaks up the majority of the labor expenses, and then the excuse or the blame always comes to consumers not wanting to pay the right amount of money or enough money, right? I hope a revolution comes. I mean, do you have the same feeling? I know it's kind of a call out to the industry, but it's kind of true. No, I mean, it's kind of true
totally.
that
I mean, that's always an issue. That's one thing that's like the shittiest part sometimes about interviewing someone new. It's like, okay, you understand you're only going to make so much for a while. Like it's going to suck for a while until if you're fortunate enough, then maybe you start making some money.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's usually one of the first things I think I try to tell people, like, it's going to be tough. You know, you really have to want to do this.
Yeah, and I think that one of the reasons it exists is because there's so many people that want to be in the industry that don't want to work. And the reality of the situation is that for a guy like you or a guy like me or like your friend who's the chef, because I see you guys in the kitchen cooking together, this isn't a job for us. This is, we want to be fucking around in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And
even on our day off, like just finding something, right?
Yeah. And I don't know how much that exists anymore. How do you,
well, I've worked for both types of chefs. I worked for, guys who are making a ton of money. One who was in the kitchen with us before us, and he left after us. So he was there all day, minimum 12 hours guaranteed, Never complained, whatever, always griped upwards, never downwards. But he was just a workhorse and always just did what he had to do. And he was always there with us. And then I worked for another one where I remember he would just show up like once a week or something, kind of make an appearance, whatever. And then I remember one day he came in the kitchen and he was just talking to the CDC. And then he's just like, fuck, he freaks out. He's like, why is it so loud in here? And literally we're all just like prepping, using blenders. It's like an hour before service. So of course it's going to be loud. We're just like fussing and bustling. And I'm just thinking like the audacity of this guy come in here and just start running his mouth to us. Like we're just trying to run his restaurant. What the fuck is going on,
Yeah.
And he would always wear like designer clothes. Like, don't make that. Like, blah, blah, blah. I got so and so on this and that. And it's like, oh my God, what is this guy doing here?
I think that the interesting thing also, so one of the interesting things to me that came out of this was like this independent restaurant coalition formed by some of the larger names in the restaurant industry. Some of the, mostly dinosaurs who are really connected to that OG status. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at that document. It's not very long. It's a pretty interesting read because what I thought instantly when everything shut down, everyone was like, we have, we've got 30-day credits to pay with vendors and we're not going to be able to take care of our rent or electricity or our employees. But this was coming from people who are winning awards. This was coming from people who are written up in magazines and opening new restaurants. And if you're operating on a 10% profit margin, that means that you're in profit, which means if you shut your doors today, your inventory is the only thing that you should have in debt, whatever inventory you have. But the majority of these people are ordering food daily. So how much inventory do you really have? And how much of that inventory is going to spoil? So there's clearly an error and there's clearly been wool pulled over people's eyes about the success of specific human beings in the restaurant industry. So anyways, because I heard all of this, I was like, what the fuck? Why, how are these people bitching? Of course, I understand that mom and pop restaurants that are operated just by human beings that, local folk, not people who have investors or names or are written up in magazines, they will suffer. But I wondered why this was. So I pulled it up, and one of the notes in this thing, or one of the line items is like the amount of money people can receive, and I think the cap is $10 million. So my question is, what local restaurant needs $10 million? I think that there's very few restaurants in Los Angeles. I believe that one of the highest grossing restaurants in Los Angeles is like $12 million is pretty fucking high in Los Angeles. That's 1 year's, that's 1 year's salary. So where is this 10 million? If one person can receive 10 million, then what is this really designed for? It's designed to keep feeding this old machine. Did you guys so in the end, I think that I hope that it opened people's eyes. I don't really think it opened people's eyes the right way. I think some people fell out, and I think the people that fell out, were unfortunately those who probably didn't know too well what they were doing, but could have succeeded had there been some support from the government. Did you guys go? What's the situation at the Raymond? Are those guys privately? It's privately owned, no?
Yeah, it's privately owned. They're fortunate because they own the property too.
Okay.
So they looked out with that. So they bought the property adjacent to it, which was where the old Raymond Hotel was originally. So that's where the name comes from. And then where the restaurant is itself was the groundskeeper's home. So that was, I guess, a stipulation in the contract when they bought that area, that property.
Yeah.
So like, okay, you get this, but you have to take this as well. And so they just utilized it. And I think it was already a restaurant. I don't know how long before it was a restaurant, how many years before. But I guess they took over ownership, took over management, obviously. So they're fortunate that they don't have to pay rent.
Yeah.
So I think that was like that's the biggest thing I've heard. But I know for COVID, I know the amount we made, and I think for considering where it is and the time it was actually a good chunk of change. You know, considering you would drive around Pasadena, everything was just shut down.
Yeah.
And then you're hearing about, like you said, major names shutting their doors. You know, this is nationwide. So
yeah,
I think they did all right. They did all right. Go through.
Do you think that,
you know, they had some change in staff and whatnot, but they did pretty good.
do you think that on this tip of like, I also felt that people were hanging on a little too long. You know what I mean? I think that people were like taking these loans instead of just being like, I understand trying to support your staff, but I think that almost was ego driven. I feel at least a little bit, instead of just saying, look, we're going to shut the fucking doors. We love you guys. We'll take whatever money we have right now and give it to you. And then you can go on unemployment and we'll reopen afterwards. Too many people tried to stay open and do this to go thing. I mean, I feel like that was ego driven. Do you feel that way a little bit? Like people were just trying to keep.
I think so too. Yeah. The to go was a disaster. I mean, unless you're like a specific restaurant that's already been doing large to go numbers, I think you're not going to be successful. You're not even going to come in and work close. It's just going to be a drop in the pond where you're going to make your to go, you know? Yeah. So personally, I thought it was a waste of time for some places. Cause like I said, you're just the overhead, you know, everything, the labor, you're not selling enough products. You're starting to lose product already. Like if you do have inventory that's just sitting there. So I think it was a poor idea. I agree with you with that. Ego driven, just like we're so we're not supposed to close our doors. You know?
Yeah, and that exists a lot. No, it's like there's certain shit that you can't do. So if you've got stuff, if you
a neighborhood favorite,
yeah. So if you're the chef and COVID comes around and the restaurant closes and you've got inventory that you need to pay off, run your shit through to go one time, get all that inventory out, get that inventory paid off, and then of course you're supposedly 10% profit, so you should be able to pay a little bit of money, and then close the fucking doors. I
saw some places. Sorry,
go ahead.
Some places that were selling it like a market. Did you see that on the news? You know, like they were surplus there. Great idea.
I did. I saw people were going to the farmers market and then setting up farmers markets inside their restaurant, which to me brings up like a whole nother. It's an odd feeling for me. I felt like, you want to know a weird thing. I want to ask your perspective on this, because this is just a perspective for me. I found a lot of restaurants saying when they were asking for help and talking about how bad this was for the restaurant industry, saying that restaurants are responsible for farms and essentially the entire food industry. Restaurants prop up all of the mechanisms inside the food industry. My first perspective was like, well, don't we eat the same volume of food regardless of whether or not a restaurant is open? Like, shouldn't we be producing the same volume of food? And then and then I saw the flaw in the system that really we've been holding farm. In a place like Los Angeles, where farm to table is a thing, we kind of hold farms hostage by saying that we're doing something unique that no one else can do, instead of teaching people that this is the way you consume and this is what you should be consuming. I mean,
I've always thought that saying was funny. Like farm to table, like, yeah, everything's coming from a farm at some part. Whether you're getting it, you know, from our restaurant, a smaller restaurant, it's all coming from the farm somewhere.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's kind of like I don't know, it's redundant to say that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think there should be more of a focus on, especially with LA, you know, it's a little easier to push that, to focus on health and what you should be eating. Yeah. And I think it's a time thing. Like you have to follow the changes to time, and you can't be too forceful, but you can't hold too much back. So it's like you have to teeter on both ends. Like how much information can you really give them before they start to feel overwhelmed or feel like you're dictating their decision as far as their diet, you know?
And that's
So
that's one of the
it's tough.
that's one of the difficult parts about LA for me, is having to play that game. Do you feel like it's a little bit different out in Pasadena? Do you feel like in Pasadena it's a little bit of a different game?
Yeah, like if you go to the west side, and I think it's like all fads. You go to the west side, West LA. I think people are really focused on like the fad diets that you see, in tabloids and other news and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Pasadena's always been like, oh, we're kind of our own city, set aside from Los Angeles. LA is LA, but Pasadena is Pasadena.
Yeah.
So I feel like they always just kind of do their own thing, live their own life in a way. It's more about, I think, that environment too. It draws more of the healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
do you find yourself happier in Pasadena, happier hanging out there and staying in the kitchen there?
Yeah.
Do you think that's your future?
Yeah. Well, I do like that area, like the east side,
Yeah.
Eagle Rock, Pasadena. It's just nice. It's kind of like this mountainous feel too, just at the foothill of the mountain. So
it's kind of it's kind
not
of
too far,
and it's kind of popping off right now too, like Eagle Rock. Well, of course, I don't know what happened after post COVID, but when I left, because I was living in Pasadena, Eagle Rock was coming up, Highland Park, that whole zone was kind of happening too, and it did feel a little bit more, I don't know, it felt a little bit more, a little bit more community than Los Angeles did, I think. No.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And like Eagle Rock, for sure, is coming. Highland Park's popping off. There's so much to do out there right now.
Yeah.
And then like Boyle Heights is starting to change. East LA is starting to change. So it's slowly trickling down that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you see happening over the next? You're pretty dug in at the Raymond. Do you have anything else going on? Anything else in the works?
No, right now I'm just focused on just hitting the mark with everything I make. Trying to be creative but not overwhelmed the guests. And pretty much just trying to stay creative. But like I said, I think consistency right now is just trying to make everything as perfect as I can.
Yeah.
And just be real proud of everything. I really miss having assistants because we had this girl leave. I think today was her last day. Yesterday was the last day I got to work with her. She was real young, she's like a sponge, and it made me miss having someone there to like teach and kind of not mold, but just kind of help bring up in the industry. That's one thing I do miss. Having someone that I could just like.
I might have that fill-in for you. Remember, I hit you up a little while ago, telling you someone was looking for a job. She might be the perfect person for you. I'll send you her contact info. I don't know if you're hiring, but she'd be good.
I think we are. That's something I miss for sure.
Yeah. And because now you guys are trying to posture for it must be difficult though to because you don't really know. You find the way you found out information throughout this thing is kind of like day by day as it's announced, right? Like you don't get any advance notice. You just have to be ready to pull the trigger.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, a lot of it falls under ownership. Like, depends. Like, okay, the day before we hear, all right, LA's opening the doors, or sometimes even like hours before. And it really falls on who's in charge to decide, okay, we can continue to do what we're doing and ease into it, or just go full throttle. Yeah. So it's just something that's kind of out of our hands, per se. Yeah. But I mean, how many times have service gone to shit and you just have to make it work? It is what it is. You just show up to work and do your job. That's all I got to do is show up to work, do my job, what I'm used to doing. Just grind it out. That's the good shit. Yeah. Until I'm sweeping the floor. When I'm sweeping the floor, it's all over. Yeah. What? So off the cooking tip, I'm interested a little bit in like your transition out of the real lockdown that you were in for 28 months. How was was there a perspective shift? You were like, you've always been a pretty laid back dude, but and I guess that what happened to you was a freak fucking accident. But when you went through that process mentally, is there things that you've changed about your life or specifically transitioning back into the real world? What was the perspective like? Like what went through your head and how did you get back to being you or the new you? Who is the new you? I think initially it was just like culture shock, I go from just grinding, cooking every day and I was hanging out with my dog or whatever, to just being around all these pissed off dudes who were just like who the fuck knows what they've done, themselves or their life or whatever. So initially it was just culture shock. And then it was just the acceptance of like the reality of the situation. So it took a little bit, like a month for things to really start to sink in. And I remember the first place I was at, you were only allowed one phone call every month, 15-minute phone call once a month. And so you just kind of are forced to just kind of go day in, day out without even bothering, like thinking about outside communication. So I think that kind of gets you in that mindset real quick, like in a way, like survival mode real quick. Boom. But when I got to camp, everything kind of changed. Just a lot more laid back. Going to camp fire camp, I guess it's like a privilege, You work hard for sure. You have like a normal 9-to-5 job. And then you're on call for fires during fire season. And off season too, you're on call, but during fire season, there are times. I remember we went to a fire, we were there for 36 days straight.
Holy shit.
So I remember we were there for 20 or 21 days. And then we're on our way back to camp. And then like literally like 30 minutes out, we're like, oh, we got redirected to another fire or whatever, which happened just to be the very opposite corner of where we originally were. So we ended up going there for another like week and a half or so, like 2 weeks or something like that. But
and what's life like?
I think I did a lot more like patience for sure.
Yeah.
Patience, understanding, because you're around a lot of dudes. I was really fortunate growing up. My parents always provided for me and have a good family and whatnot. So you're surrounded by dudes who aren't as fortunate and had a real hard time. So, you just kind of learn to be understanding and forgiving. Some people are kind of acting out sometimes. You just kind of got to check yourself like, hey, who knows what he's going through today? Like, the situation sucks.
Yeah. And what was life like inside that camp? Is it like a building? You're saying you camp out when you're fighting fires, right?
Yeah.
And then you go
24 on and 24 off. So 24 hours straight working. Not necessarily working, but you're out in the field doing whatever. And you're waiting for an assignment. Sometimes the assignment can take an hour. Sometimes it can take all night. Depends. And then the following day you have off and you just go to like a base camp. You eat, shower, and sleep. It's pretty much all you do all day.
And you went in that
same order.
And that's like the whole time you're there, it's 24 on, 24 off.
Yeah. That's when you're at like a fire.
Yeah.
And then when you go back to the camp, it's just like a dormitory. Every camp is different, but the one I was at was just this big, large building, and it was separated into 4 dorms, each housing different crews. And so you pretty much, you live with your crew. So you guys become really tight. You live with your crew, you work with them. So there's a strong bond. And then when you're out in the actually fires, you really rely on one another. It gets pretty gnarly. It's pretty sketchy.
Is there a long training program, or do they just kind of throw you directly a month long?
It's a month long. It's a lot of physical and then a little bit of written. It's like basic fire education 1 type information they can pump into you within a week. And then the other 3 weeks are just like hardcore training. And usually most people, they weed you out in the first week. Like if you're going to make it, you'll make it. If not, by the first week you're out.
And then you go back. If you don't make it, you go back to lockup.
And then I think you have to wait like a month or a couple months or whatever it is. And then they give you another try. And I think you get 3 tries total. You can't make it in 3 days. Okay, you're out. That's it. Do your time.
That's nuts, dude. And you got a first try.
Had to.
You were not going back to that motherfucker, no?
No.
That's crazy, bro.
Rough, dude.
That's crazy.
Yeah, just doing this like Harvard steps where you're just stepping up on this bench over and over with this weighted backpack.
Yeah.
And you do it for like 30 minutes straight, just stepping up on these steps. So you're just like, oh my God.
Were you working out were you working out in lockup? Or were you just like chill? So at least you were like in it a little bit. Yeah.
You got it, dude. Mandatory. You got to do 1,300 push-ups and burpees every day.
God damn. 1,300, bro?
I came out like a machine, dude. I was like in such great shape, the best shape I've ever been in my life.
And now you're eating all those pastries.
Now I'm eating junk food left and right. I got 2 bags of gummy bears.
Of course you do, bro. Of course you do. And did you find that this perspective shift changed the way you work and interact with human beings inside your workplace? Because it seems like first of all, it seems like there's probably a lot of similarities between the camaraderie that's in the camp, but it also seems.
I was about to say that because, like, I think once you climb the hierarchy in the food industry to where you're a manager and you have to manage all these personalities, you learn right away. I mean, this is any job. You learn how to approach each individual. To them.
Yeah.
And so I was able to apply that to, being locked up because every person is different.
Yeah.
Some you can mess with, some you have to be real serious and instructful. Some you just very. And so you just have an array of people. So I think that helped. That came into play big time.
Yeah. And then when you got out, do you feel a shift in your work, a shift in your focus, as far as
just appreciation overall?
Yeah.
And then with the virus too, like appreciation for all the little stuff I have.
Yeah.
Because of being away, but then because of the virus, just appreciate that my job is still available.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's. But also, look, that's a testament to you as a human being and as a pastry chef as well, that you were able to jump back in because I mean, look, as you did, I came up through the ranks, and I worked in all kinds of different types of restaurants, steakhouses, barbecue joints, big restaurants, small restaurants, and you see dudes who are in their 50s, 60s, calloused hands, broken backs, just grinding, and have gotten in similar situations to what you got in and weren't able to come back from it. So definitely it's a testament to your work. It's a testament to your credibility in that scene. So welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back, dude. Straight up.
For sure. And I
love working in the restaurants. People always ask me, like, why don't you open like a cafe or whatever? I'm like, I love restaurants.
Have you thought about doing something on your own?
Something about it,
Is that the end goal for you?
I'd rather be like a consultant, have my name on a product and have someone push it for me than have my own shop, I think. Because I feel like the shop would consume me 100%,
Yes.
And I think there was a big part of me where I was like, I want all the accolades, this and that. But as I've gotten older, I'm just like, I just want to make good food and be remembered for the good food.
I guess we all
have a family and be able to provide.
Yeah.
I think being away kind of made me focus more on like my future, like the, when I'm old, like retirement or whatnot.
Yeah.
And try and just kind of think about that and prepare for that a little more. Because in my 20s, like, dude, it was just about just having fun and doing anything and everything. So.
Yeah. It's funny that you say, I think that every one of us, because it's something instilled in us in this industry, that we all have some odd drive for those accolades, even though we all know they're bullshit. Because I think that you've got to be pretty unintelligent to not know that there's no best restaurant in the world. And that
it's all politics, dude.
And
it's all your publicist. You got a good publicist.
Exactly. And for some reason it's unfortunate that people get stuck in it for so long and that people chase it for so long. There's some really beautiful human beings in this industry who just don't give a fuck. And those are the ones that we need to be paying attention to. And the ones who are being paid attention to are the ones who will do anything to get on a list. Like you said, pay a publicist and get on a list. And one of the worst things is that now, to go back to the farm to table bullshit, like people are using those terms, sustainability, farm to table, low carbon footprint. People are using those as marketing terms and they're really not fucking doing any of that shit. They might work with a few local farms, but everyone in fucking Los Angeles works with a few local farms. And
I mean, they're not even working with a farm really. They're working with purveyor, who will, goes to the farm maybe once a month and just makes a few phone calls for you here and there,
Exactly.
Like very few chefs are really driving up. I mean, we're in California too, so it's really not that far, a couple hours. And you're damn near any farm that you want to use. I really doubt a lot of them are even going,
You want to know something I realized?
Even going to the farmer's market.
I mean, dude, that's the funniest thing is that going to the farmer's market qualifies you as a sustainable chef these days.
Yeah.
And there's so many, that Santa Monica farmer's market, there's so many goddamn cameras in chef coats with names embroidered across the chest. It's ridiculous.
It's like, remember that game you played as a kid, Slug Buggy? I feel like that's a good farmer's market game. Like every time you see a dude in a chef coat, bah.
Exactly, bro. It's perfect. Yeah, it's a really, again, that was one of the reasons I came to the middle of nowhere. My goal specifically was like, you can't work that way inside a city. You can't work directly with the farm really, because the system just doesn't work. And I'm an anarchist. I believe that societies can support communities can support themselves if they focus on the community and not all this other bullshit like the fucking world's 50 best restaurants and growing whatever. So
it's all mutual aid.
Exactly, bro. There you go.
Solidarity, dude.
There you go. So the interesting perspective shift for me was, it started when I was in Los Angeles actually, and I tried to work this way. I don't know if you remember in Tui's I was like canning. We didn't have any tomatoes. It was just canned tomatoes during tomato season. I canned all the tomatoes and did like peaches and shit like this, because the idea for me was especially chefs who have cooked for a long time, what we do when we create a dish is we think about a dish and then all of the ingredients that we want to put it in, and then we find a way to bring those ingredients together, right? That's the traditional way we create a dish. And I wanted to just go somewhere and see ingredients and only use those things, regardless of whether or not I really liked them or really I knew what to do with them. That's what I wanted to do, because I felt like that's a way that I could challenge myself and really learn again, because I was at a point where I wasn't learning. And so coming to the coast has been fucking insane to me. And when I started cooking down here, I just get my shit from one farm. So I get the farm brings it once a week, and that's how I get my product. And then for fish, I go to the beach actually and get it from the fishermen as they come out of the water in the morning. And these days I'm working specifically with vegetables. I'm working on a new plant-based taco concept. That shit's so much more challenging than meat. Meat's very easy. Meat's a send home. Totally. But I found myself questioning everything I had learned. Like, we believe we need shit that we don't need. I don't have trash in my restaurant. I remember the first I was like, I can't even take the fucking trash bag outside because there's not enough trash in it to take out. It would take me a month to fill it. And I don't believe it's impossible. I believe what makes it impossible in big cities is this yearning, subconscious yearning for the accolades that we get, and we're pushing to fill more seats, bring more seats, expand, grow bigger. Maybe that's the cool thing that COVID will do here, no? Is like it's made us all think a little bit smaller.
Yeah, I mean, I can say from experience, it's harder to get product right now, you know?
Yeah.
We're trying to get rhubarb for like a week and a half, like a week straight, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like a year-round thing, but for some reason, it's been super challenging. You know, now you have to think outside the box.
Yeah. So
I think with LA specifically, it's like we're just spoiled, you know? We have, you name it, like, for instance, Paul, he's out in North Carolina. It took the dude like 3 weeks to get some beets, you know what I mean? Make a phone call tonight, have beats tomorrow by like 2 o'clock.
I know, and I know, and I think it's a fucking problem, to be honest with you. I think that there's such a homogenization of food and restaurants in Los Angeles. It's absurd to me. Everybody's got the same.
I think that's just a small portion too, because then you look at like specialty items, like all the stuff we're importing, you know, and how much we're paying for all that stuff. You know, it's just.
I had to.
There's so much.
So I have a in the south of Mexico. So I'm sure you understand like the milpa system. Have you heard of the milpa system? This is like what North America survived on. It's corn, beans, and squash. They're all supplemental to growing each other, right? Okay. These are the three things that America subsided on for centuries. So in the south of Mexico, we still have endemic squash called calabaza. And the one that specifically is from this region is called calabaza tamala. And I fucking hated squash. I had no fucking idea how to use squash. So I forced myself to make dishes with squash. The first menu that I wrote down here, I think it was a tasting menu. I only do a tasting menu. It was 10 dishes, and I think I used calabaza in 7 of the dishes. And I fucking hated it, but I made myself use it. And I started to realize, so when I started to utilize it and find the different utilizations for it, I started to realize actually it's very beautiful. I started to realize if I know how to use it, it's very beautiful. And I started to realize that actually, I don't really think that a truffle from Italy or Wagyu beef from Japan is any better than a fucking squash which grows naturally in the wild.
Yeah. It's funny. I just had this conversation with my brother this morning about the Wagyu. He's like, he took a picture and he sent it to me. He's like, ever pay this much for beef? And it was 2 slabs. I think it was 20 ounces maybe. And it was $158 for just just like, I was like, I have, and it's not worth it.
Is there anything that like, is there anything to you that's worth more than something that you can find? Is there anything to you that you really need that's really more important? Do you find value in anything, any of these wild ass fucking ingredients?
Yeah, I mean, like I was doing cost out for some dishes and all of this basic stuff that I like to use, you know, the pastry staples. So dairy, eggs, and just various types of dairy and eggs and flour and sugar, you know, those are all so cheap, you know? And so like all the other stuff is just extra because you can make so much with just those few ingredients. I think for me, chocolate, obviously, it's very time consuming to make. And it's just, I think you kind of have to, if you're going to focus, if you're going to do it, you have to really focus and do it right.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a luxury to have, like all rolled out of my hands.
Yeah.
At my disposal or whatever.
So
chocolate, I think.
And I think that those ingredients are, it's funny because those ingredients are bullshit. And you see it a lot in pastry, actually. Like there's shit that people just put on things that somehow make them make them valuable. Like, fucking gold leaf. Do you know?
Yeah. Well, for me, the things I hate the most are like the prepackaged decor.
Yeah.
Like your little, your adhesive chocolates or your little curly cues or your little malt balls, like all that shit. Like, fuck all that.
Yeah.
If I'm going to use it, I have to make it. You know?
Yeah.
That was always my rule. If I'm going to use it, I have to make it.
And how do you, I mean, I don't know that there's really in the stage that we're in right now. I think we've got. I saw an interesting turn in Los Angeles when I was there. Like, it had gone from fine dining to this more shared plate, family style, rustic cuisine, but still over the top a little bit, and again using shit that they didn't really need to be using. So I don't really know. I mean, the unfortunate thing, I try to not pay attention to what's going on in social media, but I find how many fucking pictures of the same. If you Google modern cuisine, if you Instagram search modern cuisine right now, every one of those plates looks the same, and so then they just all start using the same bullshit, and as long as it looks cool, everyone consumes it. And so I hope that
40 components, but they all taste the same.
Exactly. And no one even really knows what's available. I mean, do you even really, there's nothing very endemic to Southern California, but no one knows what's there and no one's willing to work in that manner. It's a little bit different for pastry. This is a difficult conversation to have when it comes to pastry, because pastry is, like you said.
It's true. It makes sense because a lot of that information, like when you go into a new employer, or you go into a new restaurant and start working, it's like your first thing you're going to ask is like, oh, what purveyors do you use? And then it really falls on you to be like, I'm going to call our spokesperson, and, ask for a list of exactly what's in season right now, or how much they're getting in, whatever the costs for a container, blah, 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 blah. And really figure out what they have. And then it's up to you, like, okay, now I know what farm to use. I'm going to maybe try and go to that farm, get a better deal.
Yeah.
Or maybe they go to the farmer's market and try and work with them directly, So.
And then the fall, fallback for me, or like one of the problems that I saw in that system that I see. So the other thing that with this farm that I work with, and now this is the way I'll work for the rest of my life, and I believe it's really rewarding also, is like I don't ask for shit. I don't ask them to grow shit. I let them grow whatever the fuck they want to grow. But for example, this thing at Tui's Tavern before I left, which they fucking hated me, I'm sure, and everyone in Pasadena I think hated me too, because I wouldn't put a fucking tomato on a cheeseburger. But the point was that tomatoes are available year round in California. Yeah. Tomatoes are available year round in California, but they're not fucking in season. So we're growing. Part of the problem, the majority of the problem that we face, I think, in the world in general is consumption with everything across the board, and specifically in food. 50 years ago, you had to eat what was available at that time. And yes, you could buy canned products, but you bought canned products, right? And now we're so accustomed to going into the grocery store and getting a fucking heirloom tomato, or getting in the farm to table and organic movement has caused a problem as well, because now we're pushing to get those specialty ingredients, right? And cooking is cool, so we're pushing to get those specialty ingredients. I think that we have a major responsibility to teach people how to consume.
Yeah, I mean, I have that conversation with myself every time I use a topical ingredient.
Yeah.
I'm like, should I really be using this?
Are you fucking with tropical ingredients right now? What do you got on the menu right now?
Nah, I just like when I get like passion fruit puree or use pineapple or coconut. I'm just like, I'm pulling, man.
But I think that there's a place, right? Like I think that you should be able to indulge. The problem is that we think we need to indulge every single day of our lives, and that we need that shit every single day of our lives.
No, excess for sure. That's the American way. Just excess. No.
Yeah. Word up, man. Well, hey, I'm gonna let you get back to life. It was beautiful catching up with you. I'm super happy to see you're doing good. We're gonna be coming up to Los Angeles probably in the summertime. We're driving up to Vermont, making a move. So we'll come up and see you for sure. But before we get out of here, just tell everybody where they can find you, Instagram, whatever, and then anything you got coming up that you wanna shout out.
Yeah, you can catch me at Raymond 1886 in Pasadena. You can hit me up on Instagram. It's Moelwoner, Moweloner, Gmail. Or yeah, you can email me too.
That's your email address, bro. Now you put that out.
That's my email. Yeah, that's everything, dude. Just type Moelwoner, you'll see me. I'm the guy.
Word up, and we'll share everything in the show notes. Once again, super happy for you, brother. Stick around for 2 seconds once we clip this thing, but super happy for you. Beautiful to see you back at work, and an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sure.
Appreciate it.